Hi everyone, good morning, and welcome to what I anticipate will be an informative and fast-paced discussion entitled Sales Cycle Content Marketing, Engaging the Prospect at Each Point in the Journey. My name is Mark Hausman, and I'll be your host for this special online event. I'm the President and CEO of Strategic Communications Group. We have expertise in an emerging area of the market commonly referred to as web to sales. This is how companies like yours align its web presence, content creation, social media participation, search engine optimization, digital communications, analytics, and CRM with tactical sales activities. We help marketers who sell to business and government customers more quickly identify sales leads, nurture those prospect relationships, and close deals. As we all know, the challenges and opportunities presented to today's modern marketer are quite daunting. The changes each of us has experienced during the past 24 months are influenced by a trend that analysts commonly refer to as the enlightened buyer. Simply put, customers, prospects, partners, and influencers have more control over the buying process than ever before. It's up to us to appropriately engage with these important audiences at each point in the sales cycle, helping our sales reps find greater success more quickly. That's why I've asked Jessica DeSano, Senior Director of Marketing at CrowdStrike, to join us today. In a few moments, Jessica is going to share with us a little bit more about her professional background, what it is that CrowdStrike does, and best practices for effective sales cycle content marketing. What I can tell you now, though, is that Jessica and the marketing team at CrowdStrike strive for innovation and accountability in every program they stand up. We're fortunate to have her here with us, and I anticipate she's going to share a lot of very interesting best practices. Before we get started, though, there are a couple of housekeeping items that I'd like to quickly cover. First, our discussion today with Jessica is going to run about 20 minutes, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. If you have a question, please enter it into the chat box in the right-hand column of your screen, and it will be sent directly to me. In follow-up to today's event, we'll send you by email a replay of the discussion. You'll also be able to download a replay in the Resource Center on Modern Marketing Today, which can be found at www.modernmarketingtoday.com. This is an online magazine that reports on the trends, technologies, and best practices relevant for today's modern marketer. So, let's now welcome in Jessica and talk a little sales cycle content marketing with this exceptional marketer. Jessica, good morning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about CrowdStrike, and your role there at the company.
Absolutely. Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Mark. Like Mark mentioned, my name is Jessica DeSiano, and I am currently the Senior Director of Corporate Marketing at CrowdStrike. And CrowdStrike is a security technology company. We're headquartered out in Irvine, California, and we are focused very simply on basically keeping bad guys out of your network. So many of you will be familiar with the Sony hack and the Anthem breach and Target, and our focus as a company is to really keep organizations from being breached and having adversaries penetrate their network and stealing their corporate information. I have been in the security technology industry for the last 10 years now, and I have spent my time at early stage, high growth companies. This is the third one now in this space, and I have joined the last three companies very early on as the first marketer, and basically tasked with building the brand and starting to establish the marketing organization. At CrowdStrike now, I joined when we were about 30 people. The company has significantly grown over the last 3 years, so I have had a fantastic experience really from the marketing perspective of being a marketer in an organization as the first person and working with a very small team of 2 to 3 people. And now we are, the marketing organization is at 12 folks, which is really exciting for us. It's been really exciting to see the growth. And it has presented a really great opportunity professionally, so I can now really capitalize on some of the things I've done in my past, creating that brand content and really now focus in on a role in corporate marketing.
Great. So Jessica, let's dive into this now. So CrowdStrike, as you kind of indicated, is more of a solutions company. There's a technology component, there's a services component, but really you have ongoing, sustained relationships with your customers. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process that you followed to develop a content marketing strategy and map that specifically to how your organization is engaging with prospects at each point in the buyer's journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned, I've been at CrowdStrike for 3 years, and I have a pretty distinct point of view on how we started our content journey as a team of 2, and now what we're doing as a team of 12. So I'd like to talk through a little bit on both of those. So as a team of 2 in a small organization, we were looking at our content strategy from a very basic standpoint. We had to create awareness, we had to establish brand content, and we were doing this for a company that was in its early stages. When I started and we were going down this content path, we were very much a startup. So we did, though, have some really great things that we were able to use to our advantage as we were starting to develop our content plan. As I mentioned, from an industry perspective, we're solving a very interesting problem. So, it's no question today that organizations have an adversary problem. They're being breached. It's out there in the news. It's very public. And from a financial perspective and a brand reputational perspective, that's something that people it's a problem they need to solve, and it's now being elevated to the CEO level. It's being elevated to the board level. And our solution from CrowdStrike, very simply put, again, is we want to keep the bad guys out. We want to keep you from being a headline. So when we were looking at content, we were basically looking at it from, who are our target personas, and in this situation, we are protecting information. So our target audience at the highest level is the person responsible for the information of the company, so the CIO, and then the Chief Information Officer, and then one level down, under the Chief Information Officer, the person responsible for the security of that information. So we're also looking at the Chief Security Officer, and then as our third personality or our third persona that we are, creating our content for, it's the technical guy. So we looked at this and we developed our 3 personas, our 3 personalities to which we wanted to speak and develop content, and then we, as 2 people at this point, we picked a platform, and we hung our hats on our corporate blog. So we created the blog, we branded it, we developed an editorial calendar, one of which we could look at those 3 personalities that we identified, and we created an editorial calendar where we could speak to all 3 of those audiences. We created channels within our blog, and then we created content that spoke to them. From there, we were able to bring in social media, bring our content out into social, leverage that content in our PR strategy. But there's so much you can do from a content marketing perspective, and as a small team, figuring out one thing that you can do to get started was where we really had a lot of success. And now as a team of 12, we've laid the groundwork, we had the blog that we created, we had our social strategy, we had a bit of our PR strategy, and now we're able to do a lot more. We have a field marketing person, we have a product marketing person, we have someone that's focused now on demand generation. So from a content perspective today, now we're not just creating awareness. We're still establishing brand content and building on that brand that we started, but we're now doing storytelling that's focused on the customer. We're using our content channels and the content that we've created to support campaigns. And we are really starting to dive into these personas, identifying their challenges, and we're using their challenges to really drive our editorial calendar. So our editorial calendar now is far more robust. We're really creating content that speaks to the customer and is reflective of the customer and the prospect's story instead of CrowdStrike's story. So from a content perspective, I think it's really evolved, but it did all build on some of that groundwork we did when we were a very small team.
That's great. So just to kind of repeat what I've heard you say, Jessica, start with a well-defined, accomplishable goal, and then evolve and grow the program from there based on the personas or the targets that are most important to your organization's success. So no, I mean, that sounds great. That sounds like a very strategic and well-disciplined way to go. So let me ask you a couple of different questions here, and we'll kind of dive into maybe a challenge that many of these corporate marketers are faced, whether they're working for a growth-oriented company or even maybe a more established global company. So in the cybersecurity space, as you know, boy, a lot of vendors, because it's so hot and there's so much interest and so much excitement you know, a lot of vendors really start kind of sounding the same in terms of the technologies that they may offer, the services, the capabilities, or the solutions. So as you think about your content strategy at CrowdStrike, how do you seek to kind of counteract this and create some part of differentiation? And then the second part of the question is, great, you've got this differentiation. How do you make that understandable for your readers, for the audiences that are most important to your company's success?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the cybersecurity market, and certainly, in other markets that are out there, everybody does sound the same, and everyone looks the same, and we're all tasked with the challenge of trying to differentiate and come out through the noise. So we have been very fortunate, though. We're solving this problem in a very innovative way. Our founders started the company and developed the technology to do something different. So the technology was there. We have a new approach. We have a new methodology. We want to solve this adversary problem differently. But from a messaging and a content perspective, as the marketing organization, we really needed to figure out what the one nugget of our story could be that really was different. And for us, it was focused on the adversary. And we're building our content. We want people to get to know who's trying to get into your organization. We want you to know their intent and their motive and why they're targeting you, and ultimately how you can keep them out. But this was 3 years ago when we started. This was a pretty disruptive message, and while we were standing out a bit in the industry, it was hard to stay the course, and it was hard to really keep that consistent message when there's big guys and there's big players, and you have messages that you're competing against, and people are telling a different story. So from our perspective, it was really important to stay the course, to keep with why we started the company, what our message was, and so we made a claim. We made the decision to stick to that claim and to develop content behind it, and that has really helped us do a bit of differentiation in the market.
All right, so the second part of the question then is, how do you make this differentiation, this unique offering, kind of this focus on adversary intelligence, understandable and digestible for your prospects and your buyers and your partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple of things that we do within our organization. So the first thing is that we really set out to humanize our brand and to establish a story. From there, our goal is to tell, I mentioned this earlier, but our goal is to tell the customer or the prospect's story, not the CrowdStrike story. So something that we want to be relatable, and sharing their point of view and the customer's challenge and how they can solve their unique challenge is a goal of ours today. And then the third piece is not only creating the right type of content, but finding the right audience for it. So that is something that we're working with, and that is a goal of ours as a CrowdStrike marketing team, is to find the right audience for that content and making sure that we're speaking to the right folks. So we do have, I have a recent example for this one. So we have this fantastic customer that has been willing to speak on our behalf. We had a very well-executed Q&A with their CIO, that's our target persona. So in our minds, this was absolutely ideal content. So we took that Q&A and we created a webcast out of it. So we had an hour-long session. We had the CIO, we had their technical person, we had folks from our side. We're talking through the problems that they were facing as their organization, how the CrowdStrike solution was going to solve these problems for them. From a marketing standpoint, this was a win for us for sure. But we have a very technical webcast database, a technical audience within our database, and we had marketed this business content to our technical audience. And while the content was fantastic, the audience wasn't exactly correct. So that is something that's really important for us as we continue to develop out our content strategy, is not only the right content, but the right channel and the right audience for it.
That's great. Okay, so let's transition the conversation a little bit, because we've been talking appropriately about how you and the CrowdStrike team has developed content for external audiences and map that to personas and map that towards a well-defined sales process. But you, like all other marketers, you have some internal audiences as well, too. You've got your executive team. You've got members of the engineering, client, service delivery team. You've got the sales organization. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you've gone through the process of building internal consensus and an internal understanding for what you and the marketing organization is doing with your content strategy and the impact and the ROI that it's providing to CrowdStrike?
Absolutely, and I love this question. As our organization has grown, it's something that it has really come to the forefront for us. So in the 3 years ago, as an engineering-driven company, it was a team of engineers. We have a lot of very smart, very technical folks internally, and using them in developing content was something we had at our disposal, but it wasn't, there are places where we needed the technical content, and there are places where we then needed to do what the sales team needed from us, and that was to tell the customer story and to keep things simple. So just to illustrate this point, we want to make sure that we keep our technical folks engaged. And we have, again, coming back to our blog has been a great channel for this and a great way to use our technical spokespeople. So there was an Apple vulnerability, and I won't even pretend to know the details of this. It was incredibly technical. But we gave one of our engineers our blog platform, and we let them comment on this issue. We published the content. We thought nothing of it, honestly, because we didn't truly understand it. But we put it out there. I went back to our analytics, and just as a benchmark, our blogs, the really good content, we get around 800 page views, 1,000 page views. That's a good day on the marketing side. This piece of content that we had one of our engineers publish, in the first week that we put it out there, it had 25,000 page views. So wow. As a marketer, that was something that, that's great visibility. That is, the readers of this content were obviously technical, but it was something we were then able to capitalize on.
So what has been, do you, with your CEO, with your CFO, do you have ongoing discussions with them about the effectiveness of your content program and how you're mapping it to the sales cycle? You've given an example at the engineering level. Can you share anything with our audience today about what it is that you're doing with your executive level colleagues?
We do, yeah. And so just yesterday, I'm out in our headquarters, and our CEO is obviously based here. And some of the stuff that we're doing today with our customer stories and our customer success stories, these are the types of content and the pieces of content that really resonate with the executive team. So we are putting together videos, case studies, Q&As, different Q&As, telling the customer story and telling the story from their perspective. And this is something that we can go back to our executive team with, folks of whom are also very technical. They're coming from technical backgrounds and engineering backgrounds themselves. But what resonates with them is that they're the senior leadership of a company, and they can look at this content that we're putting together, and it's true validation of what they're building and what we're striving towards.
Awesome. Well, listen, we've got just a couple minutes left, and I've already gotten a couple of questions in here, Jessica, so if you can hang out just for a few, I'd love to get your thoughts on two questions that we've gotten from some of our guests today. The first is, let me read it directly here. I work in an industry very similar to Jessica's where there's a lot of excitement, a lot of interest, but it's often very difficult to get our customers to talk on the record. So when we do, it's very exciting. The question I have is, how do we as an organization repurpose content throughout the sales cycle? Does Jessica have any recommendations?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think repurposing content is something that we've really taken note of lately. And as we've had more folks join the team, we did just a quick exercise where we were going through a content audit. From my perspective, I didn't really have a true grasp of how much content we actually had created and developed internally. So we were going through and we're looking at this list, and we had realized that we had over 100 pieces of content. So from the marketing organization, this was gold for us. We were able to then look through and figure out what we can and what we could repurpose. So there are a couple of examples where something that you create that maybe is a pitch for the press, or a piece on your blog, or something that you're adding as a download on your website can be repurposed in so many different form factors. We had an example that we actually used right around the time of the Sony hack. We had created just a rapid response to what was going on in the industry, some of the recommendations that we had for it, and we were then able to take that initial response, and we had created a webcast out of it. We had created PR pitches. We used it on social media. It was something we were then able to turn into a webcast session with a demo and give to our sales team as sales enablement. And when we set out to do this, our only plan was to create that one singular piece of content, and it developed into a fully integrated campaign with, at the end, 8 or 9 individual assets.
Wow. So there's a level of, you just have to be flexible and a little bit opportunistic and responsive to what the market is telling you, that if you're getting such a strong response and high level of readership to a specific topic or a specific theme, you want to run with it and obviously take advantage as best you can.
Exactly.
So second question here for you. So how does Jessica gauge whether the content that CrowdStrike creates is useful, relevant, and aligned with her customers' needs? She talks a lot about those customers, but what's the evaluation criteria she uses? Wow, that's a good question. All right, so how are you assessing the effectiveness of your programs? Marketers struggle with that one. What's your take on that, Jessica?
Oh my gosh, yeah, and we have 2 things that we use on benchmarks on this, and these are going to sound very simplistic, but I'll share some insights behind it. So the first one is your sales team using it? So we as marketers, we're spending all of this time creating content, and it's beautiful, and the messaging is great, and we have great channels for it, and we want to use this content ultimately to enable sales, to win deals and close business and grow the company. And this one honestly kind of speaks very true to me. So we had our first annual sales kickoff. I'm having a conversation with one of our sales folks, and we're talking about things he wants to do. So this is the end of a 2-day sales kickoff. He's super jazzed, really excited about some of the stuff that's coming up from an organizational perspective, and he's speaking to me and saying, you know what, Jessica, it would be great if. And I kind of hold my breath, and he says, he shares 3 things that he would really like to see from the marketing organization. And I looked at him with this blank face afterwards and was like, we have this. We have these 3 pieces of content. It's out there. And that was something that we had to take back internally within our group and figure out, why is the sales team not using this content? Is it that it's not relevant? Are we not putting it in a place where they can access it? Do they not understand the purpose? What are we doing as marketers that can help them really engage with this content? And how can the sales team give us feedback that will then help them use this, and we can align our efforts a little more closely so we're not creating things in a silo?
That's awesome. Well, listen, Jessica, we're just about out of time. So I want to thank you so much for all of your time and your insight and your thoughts. You can learn more about Jessica's company, CrowdStrike, by visiting their website at www.crowdstrike.com. And I encourage everyone to check out the company's blog, which Jessica has mentioned a couple of times this morning. The blog is called The Adversary Manifesto, and it is accessible off the website. Plus, just as a reminder to our guests, we are going to send you a replay of today's discussion by email, but if you want to see it more quickly, you can download it at the Resource Center at www.modernmarketingtoday.com. And in addition to this conversation, you're also going to find a replay of all of the other online conversations and webinars that we at Strategic Communications Group have hosted. So Jessica, again, thank you very much. Have a wonderful morning, and we will talk to everyone real soon.